Okay, so hi everyone. Today I am going to talk a little bit about how to figure out these cross sections. And I think by doing this will help you later on in the class because you're going to see more cross sections in the pelvic limb. You're going to see cross sections with CT scans through the neck and the thorax and the abdomen. So it's important you understand how to do this. So to begin with, let's look at this question from the thoracic limb. And let's start by reading what it's saying here. Cross section through the left scapular region, all right, of the left thoracic limb, dorsal view. So that tells you you're looking down at a dorsal view of this cross section through the left scapular region. So that also tells you that the dashed line in the image series denotes the level of cross section. So that tells you the cross section is going right through here, through this dashed line, through the scapular region. All right. Use the image series to help you identify the muscles in the cross section as necessary. All right, so let's take a look at this. So looking at this lateral view, now, as I said, I sent you out an announcement. I said you should have a good idea of what these muscles are before you venture into the cross section. If you don't, you need to go back and study these muscles till you know them by heart, because this whole active lesson app is designed to go as a learn as you go. You don't learn everything at the end. You learn things as you go, and then you apply them to other situations. So if you look at these, you should know that this is the brachiocephalicus, this number 2 is the trapezius, 3 is the deltoideus, 4 is the triceps lateral head, 5 is the triceps long head, etc. And you should be able to identify these going through this series, superficial to deep or lateral to medial. So now, what are you looking at here? You're looking at the lateral aspect of these muscles. This up here would be cranial. This direction here would be caudal. Okay, so let's look at the cross section. Now, the first thing you have to do with the cross sections are orientate yourself. This direction is cranial. This direction is medial. So that tells us that this direction here is going to be lateral, or the part that's facing you in this image. And therefore, this part will be caudal. Okay. So let's start to look at and let's start to identify some of these muscles, A through H. Well, here's the scapula right here. This is cranial. Screen right is caudal. Medial screen up. Screen down is lateral. So one thing that you probably figure out pretty quickly is that the colors match between the cross section and the lateral image. So let's start and look at this. What would this purple muscle here, number H, all right, it's out here very lateral. It's caudal to the scapular spine. So I'm looking at this purple muscle. What does that muscle basically denote, or what is that when you're looking at this in cross section, this little part of it here, which muscle is that in the lateral view? Well, I told you that the colors match, but even if the colors didn't match, you should be able to figure out that this is lateral. It's just caudal to the spine, and it's out here, as I said, in a lateral superficial position. So it's gonna correspond to number 3 here. So what muscle is number 3? Number 3 is the deltoideus. So H would be the deltoideus, and that gets you going. So if you look at this and you say, well, 3, this purple one is the deltoideus. What would this yellow skinny muscle be here? Cranial to the spine of the scapula and cranial to this purple deltoideus. Well, coming down to the lateral aspect. And the other thing you have to do is you have to use the image series. So a lot of you said I needed some 3D or I need to look through. You can look through these. You can look through these and go back and forth to help you see where these are. And what does this also tell you? It tells you muscles that are deep and superficial to each other. So going on here, what is this muscle number A here? This lateral, this yellow muscle that's cranial to the spine of the scapula, cranial to muscle H, which we said is the deltoideus. It's basically superficial and cranial here on the scapular part. Well, that's going to be muscle number 6. And what is muscle number 6? It's the omotransversalis. So once you start to figure these out, then you can start to go. So another thing you can do is using the image series is you've identified number 3 as the deltoideus. It's this purple muscle. Well, you can start to look at and say, well, what is this reddish muscle C just deep to the deltoideus? So if you go down to the image series, what is a reddish muscle deep to the deltoideus? Well, it's muscle number 10 here, this red muscle sitting in here in infraspinous fossa. And what muscle is that? It's infraspinatus. So the point being here is you need to get your orientations down, and you need to go step by step and start to identify something you know for sure, the deltoideus, the omotransversalis. Then you start to see what muscle is what. 11 is B, correct? 9 is going to be F. okay, and et cetera, et cetera. So you kind of go through this way. 5 is going to be G. So if you know the muscles in this orientation, which you should do from the previous quizzes and the lessons, you should be able to do fine on a cross section.